It's the waitingfornextyear.com podcast. Sorry for the slow week of podcasting, and by slow I mean non-existent. I was just busy, but so I started.
Do your job.
I started texting people, and Dave Sterling didn't answer. Andrew did. I texted you both within like 15 seconds of each other just to see if I could find somebody who was available last second to do a podcast during nap time, and Andrew's on the line.
Well, you know me. I'm always eager to be on. So
yeah,
as soon as that phone buzzed, I just jumped on. I was like, "Yep, I'm on."
And it's funny. The longer I go without doing a podcast, the more I just have to. But there's really, let's be honest, there's nothing actual. There's plenty to talk about, but there's nothing for real to talk about. It's all pretend news right now. Yeah,
this is always a tough time of year, especially for me because I don't. I don't watch as much Indians as a lot of people do. So, there's kind of the dead period right now. I mean, NBA free agency will certainly give us plenty to talk about here over the next couple weeks. But, it's not a whole lot going on right now.
Yeah, the Indians are important because if they were doing something, if they were talk-worthy right now, it would fill that gap for us. But all we have to talk about is the fact that Corey Kluber can strike out 10 players and still get a no decision and watch his team lose at the end of the game.
Yeah, it's it's rough because I think there was so much excitement for this team and everybody was so jacked up for it, and I think that this was one of those pivotal years where they really seemed to be drawing a lot of the casual fans back in a little bit. I know Will had talked about that experience of wanting to get back into it. I felt that way a little bit, and I just saw a lot of people who were kind of casual fans who were kind of excited and ready to jump back in on it. And then for the Indians to come out and be this disappointing is just really heartbreaking because it just feels like they had so many more eyes on them and people who were ready to come back to the table.
Heartbreaking is the perfect word because they did kind of everything they were supposed to do in the offseason. Kipnis gets healthy, Brantley comes back, they go get Brandon Moss, they keep pretty much everybody else around, even a marginal guy like David Murphy. You hope for Swisher to be healthy. But the big thing was Brandon Moss, and they went out and they actually did something, and they brought back the healthy players, and they still just can't score enough runs. And I know that's like overly simplistic. I'm sure there are a lot of different ways to explore that statistically speaking, but the bottom line is they've got pretty good pitching, and they aren't scoring enough runs to win baseball games.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of. I've seen people posting lots of different stats about their poor performance, with runners in scoring position, especially, and that's what it boils down to. It's just they're just not making the plays you need to win a baseball game right now.
And I don't want to be overly simplistic about sports analysis, but this was part of what I was talking about in my WWW on Friday, is that I just can't bring myself to talk about OTAs anymore because. Just because I want to look for something, and the harder I look at it, doesn't mean that there's something there I can actually find it. And I feel that same way about, I know that those kind of stats are important to baseball, especially in scouting. But when we're in a season like we're in with the Indians, hyper-analyzing a bunch of advanced metrics to figure out that the Indians aren't winning enough games because they can't score enough runs seems kind of futile.
Yeah, especially when all you have to do is watch the games. You get the idea. You don't need that reinforced or hammered into your head. But it's. I mean, I don't know. You want to believe that they're not out of it, and looking at it, it is a long season, and there's a lot of season left to go. But I also sort of think. What was the thing Jacob had said in our thing? There's everybody wins 50 games and everybody loses 50 games, and it's kind of what you do in the middle. And they're running into that area where they're running out of room in the middle to close that gap, and that's what the real danger is. So I don't know. I mean, you want to believe that hey, maybe the All-Star break will come and they can sort of regroup and come out and catch fire in the second half. and make something happen. And I think a lot of people do. They look at the Twins and they're skeptical that they can keep it up all year. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of good teams in the Central. Between Kansas City, Detroit, and Minnesota.
Whatever. None of those teams scare me. The Indians just aren't taking care of their own business. By the way, as an aside, this is why Andrew's better than Dave Sterling. I can a bit later. Getting a haircut, says Dave. Getting a haircut.
What?
So I'm not going to put a bullet point for this because it would be trolling. It would be trolling for hits. I don't know what it would be, but I'm not going to put a bullet point. But
bullet point: Dave Sterling gets a haircut.
No, it's something different. This is exactly the kind of disappointing year and I know it's a totally different scenario in terms of team control and everything, and I don't think it's going to happen. But what if Corey Kluber was the third Cy Young winner to be traded the year after he won the Cy Young by the Indians?
Oh my God!
What kind of deal would somebody offer for Corey Kluber right now? It would, and I could just imagine half the Indians fan base going, you know what? This is totally different because they've got him under team control, and it's like the best time to ever sell a player like that. They never could have gotten a bigger haul for Corey Kluber than what they got today.
I can't even think about that.
This is why I'm not putting a bullet point, by the way.
We talked internally, inside our internal communications before the season even started, and I was sort of talking about some of the reasons why I've fallen out of love with baseball over years, and there was really a couple big things that happened for me. One of them being the slow pace and the length of the game. That to watch a baseball game is at minimum a 3-hour time commitment, which is tough to do every single day. Another big thing for me personally, I know not everybody feels this way, but I didn't like the way the steroid guys were kind of railroaded. I feel that they got a raw deal on something that evidence has shown that it was a widespread problem, but it feels like a select few are paying the majority of the price for it, and that just rubbed me the wrong way. But then another big thing for me as an Indians fan was the combination of Sabathia, Lee, Victor, all happening in such a short span of time. I know the reasons for doing it, and I get it. I get it when I read, Indians guys saying, hey, that's not a fair mindset to have, but I'm not a hardcore fan. I'm just, I'm just a casual Indians fan. And for me, that was tough to take. And so the thought of now doing the same thing again to Corey Kluber, especially in a year in which there was so much excitement and hope, would just be devastating. I don't know how you come back from that.
Yeah, no, and there's part of being a fan of sports and being a fan of a team is being irrational. And
yes.
So it's really hard, even when there's rationale, one that even makes logical sense in your head. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that you need to put up with, the trading away. I'm not even going to say.
It can be anything. Yeah, I totally get it. When it comes to the Cavs, I'm on the other side of the table. Like, I'm overly defending everything the Cavs do, and I can look at it, and there's a rational reason for why the GMs do the things that they do, and I'll try and explain that to some of the casual Cavs fans. So I get it.
Well, and even I found myself disgusted when they traded Z for Jameson.
Yeah, and you just have to understand, like, it's just part of being a fan. Like, I can't lie about the way I feel. Like, I could sit here and say, oh yeah, you're right. There was a good reason that the Indians made all those moves, and they maybe even benefited a little bit in the long run than if they would have just hung on to them. I understand all that. Rationally, I can go along with that. But if I just say, yep, that's okay, I'm not disappointed, I'm not being honest, because it was disappointing to me as a fan to see them go through that, in such a short period of time. So I get it, but I can't change the way I feel about it. And that's why for me, this has been such a disappointing, Indian season for sure. Like, yeah. I wanted to get back into it and feel that excitement, but it's tough to do when the team is performing so poorly, and especially in the ways in which they're doing it. There's nothing more frustrating as a casual fan than watching your team not score runs. So
it's the worst.
Yeah.
All right. So the other thing that I did bring up was that, how I've been feeling about the Browns and OTAs and hyper-analyzing something that shouldn't be hyper-analyzed. And I kind of wondered what your opinion is on that, because obviously it's a big part of covering a football team is paying attention to their OTAs. But to me, all that matters is rookies signing contracts and showing up and people not getting hurt.
Okay, we can do this one of two ways. We can do the whole talk show thing where I pretend to have a point of view that I don't, or I can just say I agree 100% with you, because that's the truth. Have
you ever been in a spot where you did care, though?
I don't remember ever really being in that spot. So, maybe that's the difference is you're coming over to this point of view, whereas I've kind of always felt that way. But look, football is, it's the biggest thing in America. So I get it that everybody wants news, or they want something football related to talk about, even when other sports are going on, So it's not surprising, and I don't begrudge it or anything like that, but I can't sit there and just, talk about the way guys look in OTAs and hear these reports that guys, Johnny Manziel, he really seems to have his act together and everything's great with him. He's throwing the ball really well. His teammates are developing trust in him, and all that stuff just seems so superficial, because at the end of the day, nothing matters until they put on pads and actually play football, this stuff is important to some degree because otherwise they wouldn't do it, but to talk about it and to try to decipher and apply some kind of meaning to it, it just seems disingenuous to me, I think.
Well, and there was a certain point in time where I even started to think, oh, hey, when Joe Thomas says something, it doesn't mean anything because Joe Thomas is such a good teammate that, such a good team guy that he's supported every coach from Mangini to Shermer. He's supported every acquisition. He's tried to support every player. And so, when people rush to report his comments about Johnny Manziel and how much better he's doing, it doesn't mean anything to me anymore. And that's not a knock on Joe Thomas. It's just to say what I believe to be a fact.
I remember, this is sort of a tangent a little bit, but kind of to your point. I remember when Chudzinski was fired, and Joe Thomas actually expressed what the slightest bit of disappointment. I remember his post-game comments, and he just said something like, "Well, it's kind of frustrating that to have to go through all this again when we thought we were building something, and now we're starting all over, and it's a little frustrating." Totally benign, right? But for Joe Thomas to say that, I remember thinking "Oh my God, that guy is miserable." I was like, "This is horrible."
Yeah, that's the most controversial he's ever been.
Yeah, Joe Thomas, what a saint! What a saint! I mean, the bullshit that guy's been through with this organization is unbelievable, and he has never been down. He's never not had a smile on his face. Just the ultimate professional. I memean, this guy has just been everything you would ever dream in a first round draft pick. Just the cornerstone of this franchise, and it's just such a damn shame that this team hasn't been able to put it together and have a little bit more stability and success for him. So, but I don't want to get derailed on this. To your point, the things Joe Thomas says about Johnny Manziel probably don't carry a lot of real world weight. It's just the sort of sound quote that comes out of OTAs, and then people run with it because they want something to talk about, and that's really about all there is to it.
Which brings me to, and again, I don't want to talk about it for real. I just want to talk about it from the perspective of it doesn't mean anything, and that's Terrelle Pryor. It was all over, and I'll give you a chance, especially because you're an Ohio State guy. but it was all over sports talk radio all week long. People were writing articles about it, and in the end, Terrelle Pryor went from being probably the 40 to 45th best quarterback in the NFL to being the 6th, 7th, 8th best wide receiver on the Cleveland Browns. Okay. Yeah. And so I'm rooting for him to be a great receiver or to be some kind of an offensive weapon that Coach Flip can find a way to use and whatever. But I'm not going to spend any significant amount of time trying to figure it out. Taylor Gabriel is probably going to be more dangerous and more productive for the Browns this year than Terrelle Pryor has any chance of becoming. And so to waste all this time thinking about it is kind of crazy.
First and foremost, all Terrelle Pryor has to do is catch one ball, and he will have a more productive season than Josh Gordon. So
there it is.
The bar is low from that point of view. But no, look, I love Terrelle Pryor. I love the guy. This guy, I mean, he poured everything he had onto the field for Ohio State, and I'll always love the guy for that. He was great. If he would have been allowed to stay for his senior season, he would have owned just about every passing record in the Ohio State record books. So I love the guy. But it was always dubious whether his skill set translated to the NFL in terms of being a quarterback. The accuracy just really wasn't quite where it needed to be, in the NFL. He was good enough in college, but, those windows are so tight in the NFL. So it was always a long shot. So there was always talk that maybe he would change positions. I always kind of thought maybe tight end would be a better route to go than wide receiver. Whenever people suggested wide receiver, I always thought maybe tight end would be a little bit easier, just because I feel like, there's not as many great tight ends as there are great wide receivers in the league. So that being said, I want the guy to succeed. I'm rooting for him. I'd love for him to make the team and find some way to, have some kind of a role. And I do think he's a good enough athlete that, if he could put it together, he could maybe have an impact. But, I mean, gosh, he just, what is it, 2 weeks ago that he made the switch to wide receiver? So to think that he's going to make the Browns and play wide receiver and actually get snaps and, catch the ball, like that's unrealistic. That's probably not going to happen. It's really just a story again for right now. It is interesting because, if he's, they have the scrimmage at Ohio Stadium where he's technically not allowed to be, which is a really unique situation. I know that Ohio State has already said that they'll lift the ban and let him play there, but
of course,
it's interesting. That's part of the headline grabbing, and it gives us some good sound bites. But at the end of the day, this is really nothing. This is a guy that's a long shot to make the team who they just happen to pick up. He's just a big name because one thing, he was a controversial figure, and second of all, he's a Buckeye, and there's one thing a lot of us Browns fans love. It's having Buckeyes on the team. So
well, and I can't agree with your. I don't feel about Terrelle Pryor the way you do. I think he was demonized unfairly, but I think he's kind of a dick, and I think he's always been kind of a dick.
Oh, I agree with that.
And I think we overlooked a lot of that and apologized for a lot of that because he worked so hard on the football field and was so talented on the football field.
Yeah. But that's all I asked for out of Ohio State players.
But I do think I do think that his me. I know he visited Penn State and everything, but I think the me way he announced was the beginning, and it carried all the way through Mr. Me. And I think I can't take away the things he did, but I think he's kind of a dick.
I agree with that, but okay. I look at it, again, it's not all that different than LeBron, and look, when LeBron plays for our teams, we love it. Like that, all you want is a guy to give his all for your team, I guess. Like, I'm so willing to forgive him being a little bit flamboyant or attention grabbing and wanting the spotlight off the field. Like, I'm much more willing to forgive that than a lot of people are, I guess, because I just want guys who play hard for my teams. Like, that's.
I mean, did you catch the part of the reason the Bengals gave up on him was because he was posting videos of him throwing from training camp? I mean,
yeah.
It's just he is a guy who kind of doesn't get it. He's got some Braylon in him, except he's way better than Braylon.
Sure. No,
Although, you know what? He's way better college player than Braylon. He might not be as good an NFL player as Braylon, which is kind of scary.
Well, Braylon made a Pro Bowl, so.
Yeah, I guess that's true. All right. We're already talking more about him than we should.
And we're talking about Braylon Edwards.
So speaking of things that we don't need to be talking about, the worst sports talk radio call I've ever heard, it was straight out of the time machine from like Colt McCoy or Brady Quinn. Somebody called up unironically this week and said, I think that Josh McCown is what he is, and I think the Browns should play Johnny Manziel and see what they have in Johnny Manziel. And it was the call was to Baskin and Phelps, and Andy Baskin kind of mockingly was like, "Oh yeah, is that why do you think they should do that? Because I haven't heard that a lot." And but honestly, it's like if that's the way you feel right now, you've got absolutely no respect for even recent history, let alone like real Browns history.
I mean, I don't know what to say to that.
I don't know.
Where do we even begin? Like,
he's at a loss.
Did we not watch last season? Like, I don't know. Look, we've seen, we've seen Johnny Manziel on the field, and I'm not saying you just totally give up on the guy or anything like that, but to expect like that Johnny Manziel's going to come in and lead this football team this year, like I don't think that's realistic at all.
No,
and I don't know what else. I don't know what else.
I don't even think the Browns should plan a package of plays for Johnny Manziel this year.
No, absolutely not.
I don't even think they should do that play where he pretends to not understand the play and runs to the sideline and then goes out for a pass.
People need to understand. Nobody expects Josh McCown to be any kind of solution for the Browns. I don't think. I don't think that's what this is about. But Josh McCown is a professional quarterback. Like, he's a guy who has proven he's a professional, and he's not always the best. But he's going to play the position. He's put in the time. He's seen every defense in this league. He's been around, seen it all, and he can play football.
The Cleveland Browns know for a fact it's not a good long-term plan, Josh McCown.
Right, but that's not what it's about.
No,
it's not what it's about at all. What it boils down to is a situation in which they needed a stopgap. Like they needed a guy to play quarterback this season for the Browns.
It's like a poor man's version. It's a different sport, so it's not the same thing. But it's like if you had a good pitching staff and you're like, well, we need to pay Juan Gonzalez $10 million to play this year because we desperately need somebody who can knock in some runs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and so the Browns need somebody who's going to understand the way the play should look, who's going to be able to communicate and execute the snap count, and somebody who's going to be able to hand the ball off more times than not. And I've heard other reporters say, and I believe this, that the plan for Josh McCown is to make somewhere between 8 and 12 plays a game. Yeah. Out of all the offensive snaps that the Browns will take, three snaps per offensive series minimum over the course of a game, they only want him to make 8 to 12 plays. Yeah. Everything else is going to be, throws to the flat, handoffs, screen passes, and things of that nature.
Yeah, and then again, that's not much at all. But to ask that of Johnny Manziel would be ridiculous.
Yeah, because he can't run the snap count for the handoffs.
Right, and the worst thing we could do is just throw Manziel right back out there again. Like, I just think that would be the worst thing we could do to the guy. Would be to say, well, we know McCown's not the answer. Let's see what we have in Manziel. Like, I think that's the worst thing you could do to Manziel. Is coming off the disaster that was last season, and everything he's gone through. Like, he just needs to take his time. Like, he needs to develop into a professional. And again, and that's what it boils down to. And it's, to me, that mentality is like, it's similar to the mentality of, talking about guys who are busts in sports because they're not superstars, but they have a career. Like a guy who plays 8-9 years and calling him a bust is ridiculous to me. Like, people underestimate all the time what it takes to be a professional athlete, to have a career. And it's the same people who say a college basketball team could beat an NBA team. Like, that's ludicrous. Like, an NBA team is full of professionals, guys that can do it. And, a college team is lucky to have one or two guys on it, like, that are going to be able to do that. So, yeah, let's McCown's a professional. If we only need him to make eight plays a game, that's great. If we can win football games where that's all we need out of him, that's great. But it's unfair to expect that of a guy like Johnny Manziel. So,
yeah, absolutely. And last but not least, we have to talk about the Cavaliers and their free agency and their draft and all this stuff. But I'm going to start. I'm going to give you my take on Kevin Love and all that's going on, and hopefully you have something to add and we don't just agree 100% again. But Kevin Love opted out. Kevin Love is doing whatever he's doing, and there just seems to be all this desire to worry and talk and worry and worry and worry about what he's going to do. And I've already kind of gone zen with the potential outcomes. Either I think no matter how Kevin Love decides to go, the Cavaliers are going to be involved and they're going to be okay. I'm not going to tell you that they don't need Kevin Love or a player in place of Kevin Love. I just don't see a situation where they lose Kevin Love and don't have an opportunity to trade him, retrofit a trade after he makes a decision, because it's kind of, from a business standpoint, it's better for Kevin Love and it's simpler for everybody involved if they retrofit a trade. So I'm not worried about Kevin Love. I hope he signs I still think it's better than 50% that he signs the 5-year max deal here in Cleveland. But I don't understand why everybody's so worried about it. Do you understand?
I guess I understand why they're worried, because it's sort of in our nature. It's not comfortable. When we went through this with Carlos Boozer, and I think that's always in the back of people's mind a little bit, even though that's, not a comparable situation at all. But here's the thing. You're a guy, you own your own business. You've hired people, you've had employees. Do you enjoy having employees who don't want to be there?
No.
Like, is that ever a good thing for you, to have a guy who doesn't want to be there?
In fact, I've made the mistake of having somebody want to leave and trying to keep them. Mm-hmm. Yep. And it's the worst thing that you can ever do, because if you somehow manage to give them a reason or somehow manage to keep them, mm-hmm. they feel like they're doing you a favor for them until the end of time.
And that's where I stand with Kevin Love. Look, if Kevin Love doesn't want to play in NBA Finals with LeBron James and Kyrie Irving, then we really don't want him to be here. That's the truth. That's all. It's that simple. His decision, is he's not going to have a better opportunity to win championships anywhere he goes than he will by staying in Cleveland. And he gets to be a part of something special by being here. And if that's not enough for him, then why would we be on pins and needles over him staying? Like, I would rather he not be here if that's not what he wants. I don't want a mopey Kevin Love who's going to be down because he's not getting his touches. I don't want any part of that in that locker room. That can be toxic. That can be absolutely toxic. That sort of mentality has derailed so many teams over the years. When you have just one guy that's not happy, he can just ruin everything. So I think it's that simple. And that's why I said I want him to look around. Like, I'd love for him to talk to the Lakers and see what it's all about. Like, if Kevin Love comes back to Cleveland, I want it to be because that's where he wants to be. I want him to quote LeBron, I want him to fit in. I want him to be all in, just like everybody else. And I think he will. I really do. At the end of the day, I think he's going to sign the 5-year deal and stay in Cleveland. I think you look at everything. he's had his opportunity to be the guy. You know, he's been there, done that. And he can go to Boston and be the guy there, and maybe they'll be a little bit better than Minnesota. He'll certainly have the advantage of being in the East versus the West. But what team is Boston going to put together that's going to be better than LeBron James and Kyrie Irving? What are they going to do?
Well, have you heard the rumors? They want to pitch Paul Pierce and Robin Lopez.
Not Brooke Lopez, Robin Lopez, mind you. Like, I wouldn't even care if it was Brooke Lopez, but
like,
Robin
dude, if that's
Lopez.
your big three, if that's
more power to you. Like,
you're not going to win.
If that's what Kevin Love wants, see ya. It's just that simple to me. I just look at what the Cavs have to offer in terms of an opportunity to win championship every single season. Every single season. I mean, we showed last year that for at least the next couple of years, LeBron can do it on his own if he has to. But I mean, my Lord, like, I don't know what these other teams in the East are going to do to overcome LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Love.
We'll just stop right there.
Mozgov.
LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, and whoever else. Tristan Thompson.
Yep.
And I never thought a million years that I would say that about Tristan Thompson,
by the way. They are set for the next couple of seasons. They don't have a logical challenger in the Eastern Conference right now. Chicago looks like a mess. You know, they thoroughly dismantled Atlanta. Washington doesn't really scare me. Toronto doesn't scare me. Like, I just don't see it. So I just look at what's Kevin Love's options here. You know, if he can go to the Lakers, and they got D'Angelo Russell. That's nice. Kobe for another year. And if Kevin Love didn't get along with LeBron, I don't know how he's going to get along with Kobe, but that's another discussion. But
absolutely true.
Yeah, but you can go be a part of that in the Western Conference, which is still stacked, and teams that aren't going anywhere in the West. Houston is set. Golden State, they're set. Like, those teams aren't going anywhere. It's going to be a long time before the Lakers can compete with those teams. So I just look at that. And then, in the East, he's rumored to Boston is the one place that people are talking. But but I don't know what Boston can possibly do to look like a better team than Cleveland. So I'm not worried about it. I'm really not. Like, if he leaves, I'll be disappointed that he left, because the Cavs are better with him than they are without him. So from that point of view, I want him. But if this isn't enough for the guy, I don't know what you can say. If this isn't what he wants. What can you do?
All right, so how about the rest of it, the rest of free agency? Obviously, the Cavaliers, J.R. Smith is out there. The Cavaliers drafted their number 24 pick and then moved it to Minnesota. I saw a lot of people complaining about that too, and I think that's a lack of business understanding. Mm-hmm. The Cavaliers are going to have to pay tax money, so everything that I read was that they'd have to pay that rookie, the number 24 pick, Tyus Jones.
Yep, Tyus Jones.
They would have had to pay the number 24 player in the NBA draft somewhere between $5 and $6 million after taxes on the ifcome that he can play, or they can keep that money and bet on acquiring a veteran who they can scout a little bit more clearly. It's just a really inefficient way to use money, because you never know how rookies are going to develop.
Yeah. Jacob's done a great job, Jacob Rosen for our site.
He's
done
killed
a great job of, just showing everybody how much money the Cavs are going to have to spend. And when you're talking on that kind of scale, like, any little bit that the Cavs can save and cut a little bit of a corner here and there is really nice for Dan Gilbert's bottom line. And if you look at the ways in which you're going to save...
Just for the record, Andrew did not just say that Dan Gilbert is cheap.
No. I mean, he's far from it. Dan Gilbert has proven time and time again, he'll spend what it takes. But if we can save him a little bit of money by, moving that draft pick...
And we're talking about efficiency at the bottom half of the roster.
Well, and that was my next point.
Sorry.
Versus moving a guy that LeBron has an attachment to. The greatest sin the Miami Heat committed was getting rid of Mike Miller. it pissed LeBron off. LeBron was sitting there saying, hey, look, I took less money to do this, and now you guys are cutting corners to make us a worse team and to get rid of a guy that I like, that I wanted to be here. So by trading Tyus Jones, LeBron James doesn't have any connection to Tyus Jones, So that's a guy that, you can move out of that draft pick and not irritate LeBron. Save you a little bit of money there. And at the end of the day, let's be honest, as much as I personally like Tyus Jones, and I think he could have helped this team a lot actually as a backup point guard, at the end of the day, the margins between when you get to the back half of the first round of the NBA draft, it's already a crapshoot. Like, whether these guys are going to be good, it's such a crapshoot back there. It's a crapshoot.
It's 7, 8, 9, and 10 a lot of years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at that 5 to 10 slot. I mean, you can pull up Basketball Reference and go year by year and look at the 5 to 10, and you're going to see a lot of guys that you're like, wait, what? Who's that? Oh, he got drafted. Like, it's rough. The NBA draft is rough, and so when you get back there, the difference between picking 24 versus 31 and 36, it's not that great. It's not that great of a difference. So I personally liked Tyus Jones. I was hoping the Cavs would be able to draft him actually going into it, and when I saw that they had taken him, I was initially ecstatic. But I understand why they did it, and I'm not upset about them trading it. I'm perfectly fine with it.
All right. Well, thanks so much for jumping on with me last minute.
I hope your haircut was worth it, Dave Sterling.
Yeah, you take that, Dave Sterling. Yeah. No, and whenever you and I crack a microphone, we seem to be able to just go for 35, 40 minutes without even trying. It's a lot of fun, man. Thanks.
Yeah, without having anything to talk about. I mean, we spent a lot of time talking about Browns and Indians, and especially Indians. I don't ever talk about Indians. So.
No, you really don't. Unless they make the playoffs.
That's right. Then I'm in. All in, baby.
All in. Tribe fan for life.
That's right.
All right. Until next time, everybody, it's been the waitingfornextyear.com podcast.